All right, today we're going to be printing with our foam plate. Now, if you did not get your foam in your art kit, you do need your art kit, but if you have like a styrofoam, like normal like eating plate, you can use that too. So it should be styrofoam because the idea is that these indents will show as white lines when we print. So if you have your styrofoam and you pushed in with pencil and made these indents, you're in good shape. If you were not able to get your styrofoam, or you're not able to in general, you need not just like a paper plate, but like a actual like foam plate. Let me know if you have questions about that. But what we're doing is making a print from our plate and using the real paper, so the thick paper that's the same size as the plate. You also need a water cup and your brush. So if you don't have that, you can use like a bowl with a paper towel, but make sure the paper towel's not dripping. Make sure that it is just damp, okay? And you can find a balance. There's not really a perfect way to do printmaking. All right, so what you're gonna do is you should have warm and cool colored markers. Choose either warm or cool. So I'm gonna do it with my cool colors. And you will color this foam plate half one color, half the other. You can do it sideways, you can do it up and down. You actually could do stripes, but we're gonna color this whole thing. And you'll feel the bumps of your indents and you'll kind of be able to see them still. And this is with washable markers. You can't use Sharpie for this, but if you don't have the kit, you can just use washable markers. Sometimes dry erase markers don't react like these, so they need to be washable. Okay, once you have that colored, we're going to put a thin layer of water on our paper. So I'm going to quickly kind of put some in the middle, and then I'm going to try to spread it out to make, oops, I'm getting some marker on it, a thin layer of water. So it should be shiny, but definitely not too wet. Okay, so it should be shiny, not too wet. You will then put it wet side down onto your plate. Once you place it down, you cannot shift it around. So once it's down, try to hold it with one hand so it doesn't shift too much. So hold it with one hand, rub with the other. And I'm using a very flat hand to try to rub all parts of the plate. I'm gonna switch hands. I'm gonna hold it with this hand since I really didn't get my left side. And I'm going to rub kind of like in little rows. What we're doing is making sure that the paper touches every single millimeter of the plate. So one hand should always be holding it so it doesn't shift. One hand should be rubbing. Now, how do I know I'm done? Let's check it. So hold it down with one hand so it doesn't shift and peek. Okay, I see white lines, that looks good. If you see a spot that doesn't have a lot of color, try to fold it back down and rub it. But it's really important that it doesn't move, because once it moves off, it's very hard to realign it. It's actually kind of near impossible. Okay, I've rubbed it a lot. Let's see what happened. There we go. So this is a print. This is our plate. So from our plate, we pulled a print off. Basically, we stamped it onto here. You can see that my middle maybe had a little more water and more rubbing than my outsides, which is okay. And I like that this actually didn't turn out perfect, because prints sometimes won't turn out perfect, but my goal is that I can see my lines. Do you know why those lines are white? My lines are white because these indents didn't get any marker in them, and the flat paper didn't pick up any of the color. So even if your indents are kind of dirty, because they're indented, because they're away from the paper when it's laid on top, it will make these white outlines. So for this week, I want you to try one or two but you need paper for next week too. And if you run out of paper this week, you can always just use scrap paper. One or two that are just bands of color. So we're not coloring in the people, we're just making bands of color. So this next one, I think I will try to do as close to rainbow order as possible. I don't have all the colors of the rainbow, but I will try to do that. Wash it off a little bit. It's okay if it's a little dirty. If it doesn't come off the first time, it's probably not going to come off in general. Okay, my red doesn't look too strong. Let's see how my yellow is. Not bad. These might not come out that bright. That's okay. I'm using the side of my marker because it makes thicker lines. Also, I should say this, or I should have said this way earlier, if you're at home and doing this and you're trying to not make a mess, you probably should put a piece of paper under this, but they're washable markers, so it's kind of okay if it's not the end of the world. They will wash off. Maybe those are much better. Okay. All right, so step 1, marker. Step 2, wet my paper. I'll do it with a paper towel this time so you can kind of see what it should look like. So if I have a paper towel, I want to wet it, but I don't want it dripping, so I'm going to squeeze it a little bit. And then I'm going to just kind of wipe my paper. Actually works a lot faster because the paper towel is a lot wider than the paintbrush. If this ever gets too wet, and it will start to curl a little bit, just wait a second. You can waft it around a little bit for it to dry. If it's too wet, it might blend the colors too much. Put it down and hold one side. Rub the other side with all of your hand. Hold the other side. Rub it with all of your hand. Let's peek. Remember, try not to move it. That looks pretty good. Try to get all my corners. I want to see that rectangle. Remember, you can peek as many times as you want, but once you move it off, you can't really do anything with it after that. There we go. Awesome. So try your best. It is really hard to get a perfect balance of how wet your paper should be and how much you should rub. As you can see, it's not always going to be perfect, but our goal is to be able to see our figures. And honestly, the kind of inconsistencies of dark and light kind of make it more real. If it came out perfectly, it would look like it came out of an actual like computer printer, which I don't know, it's kind of boring. So kind of like the texture, but try to get it so that you can see your figures clearly. And if they are not like these nice white lines, you might need to go back with a pencil and indent a little further so that way they turn out nice and crisp like that.